too, because one of the most important things that it prioritizes is dinacharya, which is a daily routine.
Okay.
And it's sticking to that daily routine, that schedule, those self-care practices, wellness practices. And it's like, if you skip a day, it doesn't mean that it's all for naught. It just means you get right back on track again and you come back. That you make that part of your life. You make that your essentials.
I love that. Thanks for locking in and welcome to Jyim Life. I am Jyima and my co-host for today is...
I'm Kat Heagberg Rebar. I'm a yoga teacher, Pilates instructor, personal trainer, and author.
And we're going to be talking about Ayurveda. Did I pronounce it right, Kat?
You did, perfectly.
All right, let's vibe out. So, Kat, I'm so glad that you could make it down and then we could start this journey of putting together some really good wellness information for people.
Yeah, me too. Happy to be here.
And, you know, looking through like your background, your resume was insanely interesting. So I really want to start off by just getting to know you a little bit better.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And tell me how you got into yoga and mindfulness and all that stuff.
Yeah, oh gosh. So I started out as a dancer, actually.
Okay.
Started dancing when I was like 3. I grew up in Michigan.
Okay.
And I was always walking around on my toes. And my mom said, you know, as soon as we have a dance class that will take someone as young as you, you're in.
Okay.
And so I started dancing and it was immediately my favorite thing. I was always dancing around my house, everywhere. Loved movement in general, played like every sport I could. I don't have depth perception, so ball sports, not a good thing, but every other sport was into. Yeah.
Into it.
And then when...
And how early did you start yoga?
Oh, so I would practice with my mom like around the house when I was little. She would do like a shoulder stand here and there and I'd immediately like jump on her every time. But I didn't start practicing seriously like daily until I was in maybe my freshman year of college, I think. I started teaching at my college gym, Pilates, fitness classes, and just loved taking the yoga. So I did a couple trainings and then eventually went through a 200-hour training, which is what a yoga teacher is. It's kind of like the minimum requirement for a yoga teacher. And then I moved to a yoga retreat center after that, did a lot more training, and just kind of dove in. All of my 20s, I was just teaching, doing yoga trainings. So yeah, I've kind of been at it ever since.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna go through some warming up as well as we start get into the conversation because there's still some more stuff I want to know. First thing we're gonna do is a forward lean hip hinge. So just here, driving back, and it'll come back up. Yeah. So okay, so do you feel like yoga kind of transcends into your personal life as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything, because it is so nuanced. It's not just the physical movement, but there's the pranayama, the breathing exercises, meditation, of course, is a wonderful tool, relaxation, and then the philosophy too.
Okay. Tell me how you feel the breathing has helped you.
Oh, it's helped so much, just kind of giving me the tools to regulate my nervous system. Even when I didn't really know that that's what I was doing, I could understand that breathing a certain way would help me calm down if I was anxious or give me a little more focus. Focus is actually one of the first reasons why I really got into yoga, because I've always had trouble sitting still, paying attention, and being able to have those tools to help with that has been really transformative.
I love that. And so you're a yoga instructor?
I am, yeah.
Okay. And also personal trainer? Okay. And how do you find that connection between, let's say, somebody who likes to do HIIT training and somebody who likes to do yoga? How do you kind of blend the two? How do you think they complement each other?
There's a lot of crossover, actually. Sometimes, someone will have me come over to do like maybe a HIIT session, and then they'll say, actually, I really just want to stretch. I'm really tight today. Or the opposite, somebody will say, yeah, I want to do a really stretchy, chill class. And they'll say, well, I have more energy than I thought I did. Maybe we can work out a little more. So it kind of gives me the tools to adjust on the fly based upon somebody's needs and goals.
I love that. And of course, in addition to that, you're an author. And you wrote a book about yoga.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, a couple. My first one that I wrote with my friend Diane Bondi, Yoga Where You Are, that came out a few years ago.
Okay.
It was just published in Mandarin, which is kind of exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then my latest book, Yoga Inversions, Your Guide to Going Upside Down, that came out this August.
And what is the biggest thing you want people to take away from reading a book?
I think that yoga's for everybody, and you don't have to do the hard, like really impressive looking poses, but you can find a version that works for you. That yoga is not about changing yourself to fit a yoga mold, but it's about really finding what works for you and changing the practice so that it fits exactly what you're looking for and exactly who you are.
Okay, so if someone like even myself, when I take yoga, I feel like, oh, I'm doing this position wrong, or I'm doing this flow wrong. But a lot of people say it's kind of like you just finding where you are within that flow.
Exactly. I always say that it's really hard to do yoga wrong. As long as it feels good, as long as you're feeling, what you intend to feel, whether that's a stretch or even getting your heart rate up a little bit or strengthening, then you're doing it right. It's never about what it looks like.
I love that. Okay, so today we're gonna go through a body weight circuit.
Cool.
We're gonna go 5 exercises, each one's gonna be 10 reps.
Love it.
First one we're gonna do is squats. After that, we're gonna do frontal arm raises. After that, we're gonna do one-legged hip hinges on the right side, then the left side. Cool. And then we're gonna finish off with lateral arm raises.
Nice.
Okay? And then we're gonna dive into the topic,
Ayurveda.
Ayurveda. See, now here's the thing. When I was reading up on you, I saw Ayurveda as one of the things that that you're into.
Yeah,
and
totally.
It seemed insanely interesting. So if you could just kind of break that down for me as we get into our squats.
Absolutely, yeah. So Ayurveda is often called the sister science of yoga. And it's not like a hard science, but you could think of it as like an ancient science. And it's a holistic system for wellness that is really customizable. It's not only focused on you and your individual body type, your individual, mind type. We call that a dosha, your mind-body type. There are 3 of them, and they arrive in all different combinations. Oops, sorry, I should turn that off. And it also looks at rhythms in nature, like the seasons of the year, like eating seasonally, adjusting towards seasonal rhythms, seasons of life even, like what age you are, what stage you're in. And it gives you a lot of tools that you can choose from, way more than you could ever, make use of all of them, but a lot of tools you can choose from. And it's also a traditional system of medicine in India, but it's not, that's not something that I'm not a doctor, so not super well versed in.
Okay, we'll stay on the right leg.
Still on the right leg, sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
You can shut it off now.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Sorry about that. I thought I had that turned off.
Very organic here. So we're all the way
Love
good.
it. Beautiful.
Okay, now going back. Okay, so one thing you said that really stuck out is eating seasonally.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit more to me.
It's very much about where you are in the world and eating foods that, naturally grow during that season. And Ayurveda might say that kind of gives us what we need. So like in the US, especially in climates that are colder than here in Los Angeles, there's a lot of root vegetables that grow, during colder seasons. And those are a little bit more hardy, a little more grounding. Okay. And so Ayurveda might tell you to eat more of those foods in the winter time, whereas in spring and summer, focus on something that's, lighter, like green vegetables, fruits that are maybe a little less sweet, things like that.
You know what I think a lot of people don't pay attention to is that we do have all vegetables all year round.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that those vegetables are in season.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
So now, we'll go lateral arm raises. So now, it's like we can go in and what are some vegetables that grow in the winter?
Oh gosh, I'm really bad at this. My husband is the person to ask because he's the one he actually has a garden right on our balcony. Okay. Root vegetables primarily we would think of like yams, sweet potatoes. Of course, yams don't really grow here. I learned that recently, but sweet potatoes related, they do. Pumpkins, gourds, squashes.
So now some vegetables like that, does that mean that when we get them in the summertime, the quality or maybe the nutrient level isn't as high or as good?
That's what, I think what Ayurveda would say is that it's maybe our bodies aren't as good at absorbing that, or we don't get as much out of it perhaps, but You know, it depends. Like anything that's imported during that time, we might, you know, obviously it doesn't come straight from the ground, so it's not as fresh, as ripe, as perfect as something that you literally just pull up. But I would say ultimately, like, you know, I'm really picky. So I don't like a lot of fruits. There are only a few fruits that I really enjoy, like apples and melons, things like that. So it's better for me to have those than nothing.
Right.
So better to have a fruit that's not in season than no fruit.
Then no,
but
right.
Yeah.
Okay, but if we're really trying to kind of like tap into our bodies and being in sync with nature and the environment, if we can just kind of put a level of mindfulness.
Exactly. And yes, and that's what Ayurveda would say, is that it really is all about, you know, not just eating something because it's there and not enjoying it, but really sitting, savoring, tasting, spending time with your food, and choosing things that nourish you. Nourish is a word you'll hear a lot. Like, you don't just feed yourself, but you nourish yourself.
I love that. And then it's slowing down to eat. Something that I'm a huge fan of.
Oh,
and
me
I don't
too.
think we spend enough time focusing on how important that is.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I know for myself as a holistic health coach, sometimes we dive into slowing down in order to make sure we activate the parasympathetic nervous system to just allow the body to kind of digest and assimilate all the nutrients that come from the food. Right?
Exactly. Like why they call it the rest and digest response or nervous system. Totally.
Right.
So important.
Right. So what I think, and you could tell me what you think about this, is a lot of times people don't understand just eating healthy isn't enough, or just eating in a way that is conducive to your body and building strength and you know, increasing your metabolism, all the things is not enough.
Yeah.
It's also important that you give your body the best opportunity to be able to maximize those nutrients.
Yeah. And for me, in my experience, and at least like, you know, again, from maybe a more Ayurvedic perspective, we would say that that's the difference between, you know, like eating something quickly over the sink in 2 bites. And even if it has enough protein, it has enough fiber, whatever you're looking for, you didn't really enjoy it. And then you might not feel satisfied. But if you take the time to, you know, sit down, even just for a moment, to notice the taste, notice the flavor, to enjoy your food, then you'll feel much happier with it. And, you know, I think anyway, like I have a lot better workout when I sit and I enjoy whatever protein I'm having than if I just like scarf it down in the car and run in the gym. Sometimes you have to, but hopefully that's not every day.
So once again, it's just bringing awareness to maybe to the amount of time you spend eating your food. And I think a lot of times when you tell people that, they don't understand that actually could have an impact on them negatively, right? So they're like, I just ate over the sink real quick, and I always do that, right?
Yeah.
And they're thinking like nothing happens. Like, no, you may not be noticing, but you could be getting so much more if you just slow down a little bit. Right?
Exactly. And then, you know, sometimes, and everybody has different amounts of food that's, you know, right for them or that they want to eat, of course. But then, you know, you feel satisfied even with less sometimes. And I'm able to, I know, like go in and work out feeling good instead of feeling like, oh, that banana or whatever is in my stomach and it's there and I can feel it and I don't feel good. So then it's a whole cascade of experiences after that. And I think, yeah, exactly what you said. If you start with the mindful eating, then everything will feel a little better after.
Yeah. What you said is important though, is just the idea or the concept that it takes us a while for our body to recognize that it's full.
Yeah,
right.
It does.
So we start eating sometimes so fast, our bodies hit that point of being satiated, but we go beyond that because it fully hasn't processed with us yet, right? But now when you eat slowly, it gives your body and your mind enough time to fully understand that it's satiated.
Yeah. And Ayurveda talks a lot about times of day with that too. Like they'll say that you should have, and this is something that doesn't work for me, and this is fascinating because they'll say you should have your largest meal in the middle of the day because that's when your digestive fire, which is called Jatara Agni in Sanskrit, is strongest. For a lot of people, that's great. For me, it never worked. I would just feel sluggish, sleepy, like I'd feel like the second half of my day is shot if I have a huge meal in the middle of the day. And for a long time, I felt kind of like, oh, what's wrong with me? I feel guilty about this. And so I talked to my friend, Catherine Templeton. She's an Ayurvedic practitioner, far more education than pretty much anyone in my life that I'm close to that I know has in this area. And she said, well, that's a general guideline. The most important thing in Ayurveda is that it's customized for you. So you know your body, you know that having your largest meal in the middle of the day doesn't feel good, so don't do it. And that's Ayurvedic too, you know? But it's trial and error. You have to figure out what works for you. Yeah.
I love that. We'll go to squats. Because we've had so many discussions in the past, instructors, friends, where you know, when you go and you find these fitness programs or these food regimens and they say, do this and this will happen, right? But that should be used only as a guideline. Even something as well-versed or has so much research in terms of Ayurveda, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just because that has worked for so many people, it may not be for you. But what it does is kind of gives you a guideline to be able to manipulate. Right?
It does. And it all starts with, it goes right back to mindfulness, to getting to know yourself and finding what works best in your body and for your life.
Right. Oh, sorry, this one next. So, you know what's funny is I think that's what most wellness programs should do, is just have you develop mindfulness. So now you just start playing with the information you get. So in terms of times and recognizing, you know, patterns and cycles and things like that, is there anything that Ayurveda touches on other than food? Is it like sleep or anything like that?
For sure. It's really like your whole life. Yeah, there's this concept called the Ayurvedic clock, and you can look at it from a daily perspective, a seasonal perspective, a lifetime perspective, but there are certain guidelines about based upon the time of day. And just like we have individual doshas or mind-body types, those doshas also correlate with the seasons and the time of day. So Ayurveda would say that ideally you want to go to bed between like 10 and 11 o'clock.
Okay.
And
so Ayurveda says ideally 10 and 11
ideally,
o'clock. Okay,
yeah.
and why would it say that? And this, let me emphasize this. I have so many clients that struggle with getting a good night's rest.
Yeah.
And something that I haven't really emphasized is like finding that particular time that works. So, okay, so Ayurveda says 10, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, why does it say that?
Well, because that's when you're getting into, thank you. That's when you're getting into kapha time, and kapha is the dosha that's associated with water and earth elements. So it's really kind of heavy, kind of sweet, all these words are used to describe the quality, calming, grounding, you might say. And so when nature is kind of in those rhythms is when you would want to get your sleep, because that's when you're going to get the best sleep.
I love that. So it's almost kind of like just finding that moment where you're connected with nature and your body and your mind, everything in spirit all connected at the same moment to probably get the deepest sleep, right? The more reparative sleep. There you get 2 more. 2 and 1. Good. So now how does it emphasize like a time frame, like sleep maybe 6 hours, 8 hours, wake up with the sun, or? Pretty much,
yeah. And I think a lot of that, again, it's kind of customized to your life, to your dosha type. My dosha is Vata Pitta, according to people that I've talked to, which means really, it means I'm a squirrel, basically. It means I'm a really hyperactive squirrel, which fair, you know, that's I've been told. But yeah, so some people, of course, might need more sleep. Some people might need less sleep. But in general, rise with the sun. So before or right around sunrise is considered the ideal time, which is great because at least in my line of work, I have to do that. So if I can remember to get in bed by 10, 11, then that's kind of Ayurvedically ideal.
And you know what this kind of explains to me is those moments when we miss that sweet spot to go to sleep and then our body kind of regenerates, right?
Yes.
So now it's like, hey, I want to try to get to sleep by 10 or 11. We don't prioritize it. It ends up being midnight and then we're like, oh, I'm just awake now.
Yeah, and it's like you missed the window of opportunity.
The window of opportunity. So just, even if there's some planning around that, and we have to emphasize the importance of sleep, meaning that all those things that happen during the day, whether it's working out, exercise, stress, all those things, that sleep time is when the body repairs itself.
Yes.
Right? So even if you have like a great workout, strength routine, all those things, if you're not getting proper sleep, you're not building the right muscle, you're not burning enough calories. So if you're in a exercise and fitness routine and you find that you may have hit a plateau and maybe just getting better sleep.
Oh yeah, so much so, for sure. It's like one day, I can't even, and I say can't even do a handstand, but that's like kind of my thing, I'll never forget this. One day I was so tired, I was so stressed, and I went to try to press up into a handstand, and I couldn't do it, and I'd never not been able to do it before, and I thought, what's wrong with my body? Why can't I do this thing I could always do? And then, sure enough, it was Saturday night, I got enough sleep, I went to a CrossFit class, and I just fine, did my handstands. And I mentioned this to my friend Shantae, who's a physical therapist, and I said, why? And she said, your nervous system, of course. Your nervous system wasn't letting it happen the day before, and then you rested, and then you felt secure in your body, you weren't in fight or flight, and you could do it. And that's so encouraging to me and to people that I work with, because I think we have this idea sometime where if we can't do something that we could do previously, it's like, I've lost it, it's gone forever. This is my new reality. And that's just not true.
So, and I mean, I think naturally we would think, my muscle is decreasing, I'm not strong enough today.
Yes,
or, I need to eat more food. But you're like, no, maybe it's just not enough sleep and nervous system.
Yeah.
It's not firing the way it's supposed to for the connectivity. Right?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's just so many checkpoints, right? And we'll go squats. I know when I'm working with my clients, whether we're doing boxing or doing like intensive training, it's always developing that connection between your mind, your body, your breathing, all these things, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we feel like it could be overwhelming to remember all the checkpoints, but if we just make it a daily thing, almost like brushing your teeth, taking a shower.
Yes.
Did I get enough sleep? Did I get the right nutrients? Am I eating in season? All these things just like make it a more habitual pattern, just making sure you're in your best space, and then it'll become easier.
And that's such an Ayurvedic way of looking at things too, because one of the most important things that it prioritizes is dinacharya, which is a daily routine.
Okay.
And it's sticking to that daily routine, that schedule, those self-care practices, wellness practices. And it's like, if you skip a day, it doesn't mean that it's all for naught. It just means you get right back on track again and you come back. That you make that part of your life. You make that your essentials.
I love that. I think for myself, right? Like there's certain times I'll miss a day of training, right? And rather than me say I missed a day of training, I just allow that to be the flow.
Yeah.
Right? So, and when we go to hinges, so there's a saying that I kind of developed with my clients is, it's fine, just don't let a bad day become a bad week, and don't let a bad week become a bad month.
Exactly.
Right? And I use bad sparingly, meaning just like a day that you're off your routine, right? So it's fine to miss a day. You may need to catch up on some other things, but then just make sure it's not 2. And if it ends up being 2, just make sure it's not 5. Right?
Yeah.
Just kind of constantly being aware and adjusting.
Looking at the big picture, pretty much.
Yes, yes. So what are some other aspects of wellness that Ayurveda touch on? So we have sleep, we have food.
Movement, honestly. You can look at, your individual dosha, and, everybody that I've spoken to who's really like an Ayurvedic professional has kind of said, take the quizzes with a grain of salt. You can find quizzes online that'll say, oh yeah, based upon this trait or that trait, this is your dosha. And I thought mine was something totally different than it actually was. And, we all go through different places in our life where one dosha, because we all, I guess, have all of them within us. It's just there's a particular combination or a particular one that's primary, but they can easily go out of balance too. So if one's out of balance, you might feel maybe a little bit more stressed. You might feel a little bit more sluggish, whatever. They would put it in that context and look at it through that framework. But they would also say that you are a particular dosha, or your prakriti, it's called, or prakruti, actually, it's Sanskrit, but prakriti is what it's called in the Ayurveda, is the dosha combination that you're born with and that kind of makes you who you are. Okay. And so there are certain types of exercise that they'll say you naturally gravitate to, depending on what that is. Okay. So like for me, being very vata, I love to run. I love to move. I love to dance. I love to be really active and do things that change quickly. But what I kind of don't gravitate toward as much is long, deep stretching and heavy strength training. So I know I also need a little of that too. That I can and should do the things that I'm good at and I'm drawn to, but I should also balance that out with a little bit more of what maybe I'm not as inclined toward.
You know what's fun? So explain to me dosha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said there are quizzes online to find out your dosha.
Yeah.
Okay, and what that does is kind of gives you an idea or a starting point to find out what works for you in regards to movement.
Yeah, movement in pretty much any aspect of life. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and spell dosha for me.
It's DOSHA.
DOSHA.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's been a while since I've seen some of the online quizzes, but I think Banyan Botanicals.
Okay.
They're like an Ayurvedic supplement herb company, I believe. They have a pretty good quiz that I think a friend of mine wrote.
Okay, Banyan Botanicals. Banyan Botanicals dosha quiz.
Yeah, if you search
Okay.
for that, you'll be on the right track.
I love that. And let me tell you, all of these things and these recommendations, I have, no matter what it is, whether it's you figuring out your BMR, whether it's a dosha quiz, whether it's a personality type,
Yeah.
you just want to use that as a starting space to kind of get to learn yourself.
Exactly.
Right? Because I'm sure with the dosha quiz, it's probably going to ask us questions we didn't even think about in regards to what we should pay attention to about our own selves.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Oh, so many things that I'm like, really? You want to know that? You want to know like the size of my eyes? Okay, but yeah.
Right. So now you got to look these things up and figure it out. So I love that. Okay, so taking a dosha quiz will kind of give you a starting point to figure out what's best for you.
Yeah.
And when you took your dosha quiz, you found out that your body likes movement, continuous, but it doesn't necessarily like heavyweight training or strong, deep stretching, right?
Yeah.
Which I think helps us to say, you know how sometimes, and this has happened before, where, you know, you grab a friend and you guys would go to take a class.
Yes,
And
yeah.
one friend loves the class. The other friend is like, this shit sucked, right?
Totally,
So now
100%.
it's not that there's something wrong with the person who didn't like the class or didn't like the food or found out this didn't work for them. It's essentially just like may not be in alignment with them.
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so. Yeah, I can think of actually, there's an Ayurvedic doctor that I did an interview with one time, and he told this story about this high school student that he worked with, and that her parents said, you know, oh, she's not athletic, she doesn't like to exercise, she doesn't do any exercise. And he thought, maybe that's not really true, maybe she just hasn't found like the right kind for her, and found out that speed walking was like her thing, that she ended up being like this championship speed walker, and I hope I'm telling this story, remembering correctly, but like winning all of these awards, and the effect that that just had on like her self-esteem and mental health too was huge. But I guess that was because she had more of like a kapha mind-body type, which is again a little bit more maybe you might think of stereotypically someone who's a little bit larger framed or someone who's a little bit more grounded in the way that they just kind of live their life, not a squirrel like me, not bouncing off the walls, but very just a little more chill.
Yeah.
And and then it turned out she was like, yeah, I could like, endurance. That's another thing that's associated with kapha dosha is endurance. So for her, like walking for miles, you know, and just like keeping that steady pace was something that she excelled at. So yeah.
See, now what makes that story so dope, like the makes story so dope, is the fact that there are going to be times where we think because we can't do something, there's something wrong with us.
Right, yeah.
Right? But no, it's about you finding your thing. And that's not relegated to just, let's say, people who are not athletes, because even athletes can't really go from one sport to another and be just as great. You're not going to take a star tennis player and say, okay, now you're going to be a star NBA player or a star basketball player. You're not going to take a star basketball player and say, now you're going to be a star football player, right? So it's essentially about us finding our thing and then being comfortable to excel and progress in that, because it's not about what you could do once, it's about what you could do continuously.
Exactly, yeah. Right? It's about what's going to keep you coming back.
Yes, exactly. I love that. So your routine, how often do you do yoga versus HIIT training?
I would say I do a little bit of yoga every day, but that really, really varies. I mean, a big, long, formal yoga practice, honestly, at this point, probably like once a week.
Okay.
But as far as like, you know, doing a little handstand practice and then doing some deep stretching, definitely that's every day for me.
I love that.
And then HIIT training, you know, that's probably it's actually been more this week than usual, which I've been mixing it up a little bit more. So it's not like the same things every day, but I'll do that maybe like 5 days a week.
Oh, nice. And I think for me, I try to do a blend as much of cardio and strength training, and then once a week get in a yoga class. I love hot yoga.
Oh, me too.
Oh yeah, really good. And then go to the hinges. And what I found is that that constant checking in varies within myself. So there'll be some weeks I don't split it 3 days, 3 days. There's some weeks I just want to do cardio all week. And there's certain days I want to do certain weeks I want to do strength training all week.
Exactly.
Right? So it's really developing, and I love using your dosha maybe as a starting point, because maybe paying attention to how fast you eat, paying attention to what foods give you energy, what foods don't give you energy, paying attention to how you feel after your workout. All those things will then become second nature, just like tying your shoe or riding a bike, where you become more mindful of what your body enjoys and what it doesn't.
Exactly, yeah.
Other side. So when you work with your clients, have you found that them finding what their proper mix is allows them to do a lot better? Like, what obstacles have you found with clients you've helped them kind of like break through?
I think ultimately it's like, thinking I'm not good at this. One thing that I always ask before I create a plan for somebody is, what do you hate to do? What do you not want to do? Because I want to make sure I don't include that. And I'm always surprised at what they are. Like, I had someone recently say, I don't want to do any like knees to chest anything, like no mountain climbers, no downward dog, like in a yoga context, knees to chest, just don't make me squeeze my knee into my chest and I'm good. And it was so specific that I was like, okay. And I love running, but a lot of people don't like running, and people think sometimes, at least in my experience, that in order to get in their cardio, they have to run. And there's so many other ways to get cardio. Like, you can dance, you can cycle, you can, I don't like rebounding, but people I know love rebounding. So, lots of different things.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because it's, I had a friend ask me one time, like, yo, I don't get that runner's high, right? Like, and you know what that is? I mean, I get it. Like, by the time by the time I hit mile 3, I'm like ready to go for another 3. Like, I feel good. There's some people that hit mile 3 or mile 1, mile 2, and they're like, this shit sucks, right? So then that's your cue to be like, all right, well then don't run.
Yeah, exactly. Or even like with people who really want to run, like say their friend talked them into running a 5K, and they're like, how do I do this? I do a lot of intervals with them, and even running like on the beach in a different environment. Like, we'll do intervals barefoot on the beach by the water, and the person who hated running like just on the concrete for forever loves running on the beach.
You know what you just brought that I didn't even think about is running in itself has its different forms, right?
Yeah.
Where it's okay, we could run on a treadmill, we could run outside, you could run on the beach, you could run in nature, you can go on a hike. So just saying you don't like running, say, well, what kind of running have you tried?
Yes,
right? Maybe
that's
it's
huge.
finding what you enjoy about the running, and a lot of times even the scenery may make a big difference.
Yeah, my friend actually said to me a week ago, she's like, yeah, I don't run, I hate running because I did it like at Orange Theory on the treadmill and it was terrible. I'm like, well, running on a treadmill at Orange Theory, I mean, no shade to Orange Theory, I think it's fun. But like just running on a treadmill, like, I think that's terrible too. I only do it if I'm in like a hotel and it's snowing, Like, try running outside before you think you hate running.
Yeah, and I mean, even certain things, we're gonna reach down now, stretch it out, and then twist to the right, twist to the left, and then back down for the hamstring. Even something as small as like making sure you have the right sneakers, making sure you have the right clothes that you want to run in. All these things come into play when you're deciding whether or not you like something, right? So part of it is us trying to find our flow, find out what we connect with, which should be everybody's journey. When it comes to food, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to sleep, all these things, you want to find out what you connect with. And then don't be so quick to dismiss it without trying different variations of it, right?
Absolutely. Well said.
Like, I've had certain people come to me and say, I hate strength training. I'm like, well, what kind of strength training do you do? And they associate strength training with like that big, next we'll go to the side bends. They associate strength training with like, lifting these big heavy weights.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, no, there's so many different ways of strength training. You can use bands, you can use cable machines, all those things, body weight.
Exactly, yeah. Once you kind of open up the window of possibilities, that it doesn't have to be just one way, then I think it can be a lot more enticing to people.
Right? Oh yeah, I'm looking forward. Even, what I love when I take the yoga classes is all throughout the class, they're like, okay, if you just want to lay down, just lay down.
Yes, right, absolutely. Sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah, and it completely kind of pulls us away from that mentality of, you hate burpees, that means you have to do 30 more.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't care how much or how effective a workout is supposed to be. If you hate it, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah.
Right? Because eventually you're going to stop going.
And it's never about like the one exercise or the one pose. There is no like magic bullet. People will so often ask, well, what pose should I do for this? And it's like, well, there's no one pose. It's just do the yoga and do a whole bunch of them. And it doesn't so much matter, like you said, whether you're doing burpees or, okay, you hate burpees, but you love jumping jacks. I don't know anyone who hates burpees but loves jumping jacks, but maybe someone.
But maybe that person's there. This is for you.
So maybe, you find another combination, another routine that works for you.
You know what I want to touch on briefly before we end or revisit is the sleep thing.
Yeah.
And so many people, because sleep is so important, right? In terms of recovery, in terms of just being able to maximize your day, cognitive function, all those things are important during sleep. And being mindful as far as what time you go to sleep that gives you the most efficient and productive amount of sleep, I think is very important. But also understanding that if you miss that time, it could compromise your quality of sleep. Yeah. Right?
Exactly. And the great thing too with, holistic modalities like yoga and Ayurveda is there are little tools and little things that you can do, like breathing practices, relaxation practices that can help to mitigate the effects of a poor night of sleep. That doesn't mean you should rely on that, of course, but if you just, need it in a pinch, sometimes that can help a lot.
Yeah. So one thing I think to highlight too is that not focusing so much on the number, because you could have 8 hours of, quote unquote bad sleep.
Yeah.
Right. But more focusing on how you feel when you wake up and what time that you went to sleep in order to give you that good feeling.
For sure. Yeah. I know sometimes I just need, like a 20-minute nap and I feel like a whole different person.
And then you're good to go.
Yeah.
And then you're good to go, which I always try to emphasize the pillars with everyone, which is nutrition, sleep, exercise, right? Stress. And these are things you want to have all in alignment and not overindulge in one particular aspect of it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for this and this great amount of information. The thing I want to really leave you with is the dosha, the test as a good starting point to have you just start becoming more familiar with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Definitely.
All right, we'll definitely be back with more.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, that was so fun.